The ultimatum, the arrival of giants, the warning systems screamed across every human colony in the solar system. 300 warships materialized at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, their hulls gleaming like polished obsidian against the backdrop of distant stars. Each vessel dwarfed the largest space station humanity had ever constructed. They moved with the coordinated grace of a school of predators, forming a perfect sphere around the inner solar system. Within hours, Earth was completely surrounded. High Commander Velcros stood on the observation deck of the Confederation flagship, the Eternal Judgment. His species, the Drollnath, were tall beings with smooth bronze skin and 3 eyes arranged in a triangle across their faces. The third eye, positioned in the center of their foreheads, could see energy signatures invisible to most species. Right now, that eye showed him the faint blue glow of Earth's primitive defense grid. Pathetic, really. Like paper shields against plasma cannons. "Commander, the human authorities are responding to our hail," reported Sub-Commander Thrain, a reptilian Cossack whose scales shifted from green to orange when stressed. They were currently burning bright amber. "Put them through," Velcros commanded. His voice carried the weight of someone who had conquered 47 worlds in his 3-century military career. The holographic display shimmered to life, showing a middle-aged human male in a simple gray uniform. He had dark hair starting to gray at the temples, calm brown eyes, and a face that showed no fear whatsoever. The nameplate on his uniform read, "Captain James Morrison, United Earth Defense Coordinator. This is Captain Morrison of Earth Defense Command. You've entered our solar system with a military fleet without authorization. State your intentions immediately." Several officers on the bridge made sounds of disbelief. A species barely 2 centuries into space travel, surrounded by overwhelming force, and their representatives spoke with such casual authority. Velcros allowed himself a small smile. Bravado was common among primitive species. It usually crumbled quickly enough. The message of power, "Captain Morrison, I am High Commander Velcros of the Stellar Confederation. We represent 17 civilized species spanning 3,000 worlds. Your tone suggests you do not understand the situation you face." Morrison leaned back in his chair. Behind him, Velcros could see a command center with dozens of personnel working at various stations. Nobody appeared panicked, curious. "Oh, I understand perfectly, Commander. You've brought an overwhelming military force to intimidate us." Very standard Imperial playbook. Chapter 3, if I remember correctly. Velcros's third eye narrowed. "You are familiar with Confederation military doctrine?" "We make it our business to study our neighbors," Morrison replied with a slight shrug. "So, shall we skip the posturing? You're here to deliver an ultimatum. Let's hear it." The casual dismissal irritated Velcros more than outright hostility would have. Still, the human was correct. Time to proceed with protocol. Very well. The Stellar Confederation has been observing humanity for the past 200 years. Your expansion has been aggressive and reckless. You have colonized systems without proper authorization, interfered with developing species, and demonstrated a dangerous disregard for established galactic law. Morrison nodded slowly, as if listening to a weather report rather than an indictment of his entire civilization. Velcros continued, "The Confederation Council has therefore voted unanimously to bring humanity under direct supervision. You will surrender all military assets immediately. All human colonies beyond your home system will be placed under Confederation administration. Earth itself will accept a governing council to oversee your integration into civilized galactic society." "And if we refuse?" Morrison asked. "Then we will enforce compliance through military action. Your cities will be occupied, your fleets destroyed, and your people will learn obedience through harsher means." Velcros let the threat hang in the air. "You have 72 standard hours to respond. Use them wisely." The invitation Morrison was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. Then he smiled. It was not a warm smile, not friendly or defeated. It was the smile of someone who had just heard an amusing joke that nobody else understood yet. "Commander Velcros, I appreciate you coming all this way to deliver this message in person." "Well, not quite in person. How about we meet face to face? I'm currently aboard Orbital Station Armstrong. It's our primary diplomatic facility. I'll transmit docking coordinates. Bring whoever you need to feel safe." Velcros was caught off guard. Surrender negotiations typically happened on Confederation ships, with the defeated species begging for mercy in Confederation spaces. This human was inviting him to their station? "You wish to negotiate?" Velcros asked carefully. "I wish to talk," Morrison corrected. "There are things you should know before your 72 hours run out. Things that might change your perspective on this situation." Velcros considered refusing, but curiosity won out. The human's confidence was unusual enough to warrant investigation. Besides, what could they possibly do against him and his personal guard? "Very well, Captain. I will arrive in 1 standard hour. Prepare appropriate accommodations." The transmission ended. Velcros turned to Thrain. "Scan that station thoroughly. I want to know about every weapon, every system, every potential threat." "Already in progress, sir," Thrain replied. His scales had shifted to a worried purple. "But, Commander, this feels wrong. No species behaves this way when facing certain destruction. Which is precisely why we're going to find out what the human is planning," Velcros said. But privately, he shared Thrain's concern. The station 1 hour later, Velcros materialized aboard Orbital Station Armstrong with 12 heavily armed guards. The transport chamber was surprisingly spacious and well-designed, showing a level of technological sophistication that the Confederation's reports hadn't mentioned. The walls were lined with what appeared to be decorative panels, but Velcros's third eye detected faint energy signatures beneath them. Weapons? Shields? Something else? Captain Morrison was waiting for them alone, hands clasped behind his back in a relaxed military posture. He wore the same simple uniform as before, with no sidearm visible. The corridor behind him was wide and well lit, with large windows showing the curve of Earth below. The planet looked peaceful, almost fragile from this height. "Commander Velcros, welcome to Armstrong Station. I trust the transport was comfortable?" "Adequate," Velcros replied shortly. "Where is your security detail, Captain? Surely you don't greet potentially hostile forces alone?" Morrison's smile returned. "Commander, if you intended to kill me, having a few guards wouldn't change the outcome. Besides, I'm not alone. There are 3,000 people on this station, and every single one of them is watching this conversation with great interest." He gestured down the corridor. "Shall we? The conference room has an excellent view. I think you'll appreciate it." They walked through the station in silence. Velcros noted everything with his 3 eyes. The station was far more advanced than intelligence reports suggested. The materials used in construction, the energy efficiency of the lighting, the subtle hum of power systems that seemed more sophisticated than they should be. For a species this young, the conference room was indeed impressive. One entire wall was transparent, offering a panoramic view of Earth and the Confederation fleet spread out around it like a net of stars. A large oval table dominated the center of the room, with comfortable chairs arranged around it. Morrison took a seat and gestured for Velcros to do the same. The guards positioned themselves around the room, weapons ready but not aimed. "The truth begins to surface before we begin," Morrison said. "I want to thank you for giving us 72 hours. That was generous. Most empires only give 48. Asterisk, we are not like most empires," Velcros replied stiffly. "The Confederation values civilized procedure." "Of course you do," Morrison agreed. You've maintained peace across 3,000 worlds for over a millennium. That's genuinely impressive. The administrative complexity alone must be staggering. Velcros frowned. The humans seemed more interested in discussing logistics than negotiating surrender. Captain Morrison, you requested this meeting. What did you want to tell me that couldn't be said over communication channels? Morrison stood and walked to the transparent wall, looking out at the fleet surrounding his homeworld. For a long moment, he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but carried perfectly in the silent room. Commander, do you know what the most important skill in warfare is? Velcros bristled at the presumption. I have fought in more battles than your entire species has recorded. Do not presume to lecture me on warfare. Morrison turned to face him. His brown eyes were steady and utterly calm. The most important skill in warfare, Commander, is knowing when you're already beaten. And I'm afraid I have some bad news for you. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Asterisk. You arrived here thinking you were dealing with a primitive, isolated species. You believed your intelligence reports about our limited technology and small military. You assumed that your overwhelming force would terrify us into submission. Morrison walked back to the table and placed both hands on its surface, leaning forward. Every single one of those assumptions is wrong. Velcros's third eye began to glow brighter, a sign of his species' stress response. You cannot possibly believe you can defeat our fleet. Defeat your fleet? Morrison laughed, but there was no humor in it. Commander, I don't need to defeat your fleet. Your fleet is already compromised. He touched a control on the table, and holographic displays sprang to life around the room. They showed schematics of Confederation ships, communication protocols, supply line maps, and personnel rosters. Information that should have been classified at the highest levels. For the past 50 years, Morrison said quietly, humanity has been preparing for this exact moment. We knew you'd come eventually. We knew you'd threaten us with exactly this kind of overwhelming force. So we prepared. We studied. We infiltrated. We learned everything about you while making sure you learned nothing real about us. Velcro stood abruptly, his guards raising their weapons. This is impossible. Our security is impenetrable. Morrison smiled that cold smile again. Is it? Then how did we manage to install monitoring subroutines in 63% of your fleet's computer systems? How do we have real-time access to your command communications? How do we know that your second-in-command Thrain is allergic to a compound found in 30% of human-occupied worlds? The Drolnith commander felt his 3 hearts beginning to race. You're bluffing. Am I? Morrison touched another control. Suddenly, the holographic displays showed live feeds from inside Confederation ships. Bridge crews working, engineering sections humming with activity, officers discussing strategy in supposedly secure rooms. Commander Velcros, Morrison said, and his voice now carried an edge of steel. You came here to conquer us. But the truth is, we've already conquered you. Not with weapons or force, but with patience, intelligence, and the one advantage we have over every other species in the galaxy. What advantage? Velcros whispered. Morrison's expression became something that would haunt Velcros's dreams for years to come. We remember what it's like to be prey, and prey learns to be very, very careful around predators. We've been watching us for half a century. Every trade ship you sent, we bugged it. Every diplomatic envoy, we learned from them. Every piece of technology you thought you were keeping secret, we stole it, improved it, and implemented it across our entire infrastructure. He walked to the window again, looking out at the Confederation fleet that suddenly seemed much less intimidating. So here's my counteroffer, Commander. You have 72 hours to withdraw your fleet peacefully. If you do, we'll pretend this never happened. We'll continue our expansion at a slower pace, and we'll even consider applying for Confederation membership through proper channels, eventually. Velcros found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. And if we refuse? If we attack? Morrison turned back to him, and his brown eyes were absolutely cold. Then you'll discover that every advantage you think you have is an illusion we've carefully maintained. Your ship's systems will malfunction at critical moments. Your weapons will miss their targets. Your supply lines will collapse. Your communications will fill with false orders and confusion. And when the dust settles, the 17 species of your Confederation will be asking very hard questions about how you managed to lose an entire fleet to a species you claimed was primitive. The silence in the room was absolute. Outside the window, Earth continued its eternal rotation, beautiful and serene. The Confederation fleet surrounded it like a cage. But now Velcros understood the truth. The cage had been built from the inside out, and humanity held all the keys. Asterisk the revelation, the long wait, the Confederation fleet maintained its formation around Earth's solar system, but the atmosphere aboard every ship had changed. What began as a routine subjugation mission now felt like walking through a minefield blindfolded. High Commander Velcros had returned to the eternal judgment in silence, his 12 guards equally quiet. The confidence they had arrived with had evaporated like morning frost under a harsh sun. Velcros stood alone in his private quarters, staring at the tactical display that showed the fleet's position. 300 warships, the pride of 17 species, the enforcers of galactic law for over 1,000 years. Yet Captain Morrison's words echoed in his mind like a curse. Your fleet is already compromised. Was it true? Or had the human been engaging in psychological warfare, hoping to sow doubt and buy time? Velcros had fought against dozens of species, and many had tried various tricks when facing overwhelming odds. But none had ever displayed Morrison's absolute confidence. That cold certainty in his eyes suggested he held cards that Velcros couldn't even see yet. A chime interrupted his thoughts. Sub-Commander Thrain requesting entry. Come, Velcros said. The Cassock entered, his scales a muddy gray color that indicated deep concern. In one clawed hand, he held a data tablet that trembled slightly. Commander, we have a problem. Velcros felt his third eye begin to pulse. Explain. Our technical teams have been running comprehensive diagnostics on all fleet systems since your return from the human station. Standard procedure after visiting potentially hostile facilities. Thrain's scales flickered between gray and sickly yellow. They found something. Multiple somethings. He activated the tablet, projecting complex code streams into the air between them. To Velcros's trained eye, they looked normal at first. Then Thrain highlighted certain sections, and the commander's 3 hearts sank. Monitoring subroutines, Thrain continued, his voice hollow. Embedded deep in our navigation systems, our communications arrays, even our weapons targeting computers. They're dormant right now, almost invisible. But if activated, they could feed false data to our systems, redirect our shots, even shut down critical functions. How many ships are affected? Velcros asked, though he already feared the answer. So far? 189. And we've only completed diagnostics on 212 ships. Thrain's scales went completely pale. Commander, the human wasn't lying. They've infiltrated our fleet at a fundamental level. Velcros sat down heavily. How is this possible? When could they have done this? That's what terrifies me, sir. These subroutines are sophisticated beyond anything we've seen. They've been here for years, possibly decades. Every software update, every maintenance cycle, every routine procedure may have been carrying these hidden programs deeper into our systems. The implications crashed over Velcros like a wave. Humanity had been planning this for generations. While the Confederation watched them with casual interest, dismissing them as primitive newcomers, the humans had been methodically preparing for this exact confrontation. The spreading doubtword of the discovery spread through the fleet, despite Velcros's attempts at containment. Within hours, every captain knew that their ships might be compromised. Paranoia began to set in like a disease. Technical teams worked frantically to purge the subroutines. But for every one they found and removed, they discovered 2 more hidden deeper in the code. Worse still, they couldn't be certain they were finding them all. The monitoring programs were incredibly sophisticated, designed by minds that understood Confederation technology better than the Confederation's own engineers did. Admiral Corvin, commander of the Confederation's carrier group, contacted Velcros via encrypted channel. The Vel-3 was a massive being, nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and skin like polished stone. His species had been warriors for 10,000 years. Velcros, my fleet captains are reporting similar findings. These humans have turned our own ships into potential traps. If we engage, we cannot trust our own systems. Corvin's voice was grave. I've fought in 30 major campaigns. I've never faced anything like this. Nor have I, Velcros admitted. But we cannot simply withdraw. The Council expects results. The Council expects us to enforce their will, Corvin corrected. But they also expect us to survive. If we attack Earth and our own systems turn against us, we could lose the entire fleet. Do you understand what that would mean? Velcros understood perfectly. It would mean the largest military defeat in Confederation history. It would mean 17 species questioning the Council's judgment. It would mean the end of careers, and possibly the beginning of political chaos. There's something else, Corvin continued. My intelligence officer has been analyzing human trade routes and commercial activities over the past 50 years. The patterns are disturbing. A new set of data appeared in Velcros's display. It showed human cargo ships, exploration vessels, and trading missions spanning across hundreds of sectors. At first glance, it looked like normal commercial activity for an expanding species. But when Corvin's officer highlighted specific routes and timing, a pattern emerged. Human ships had been present near every major Confederation military installation at some point. They'd visited shipyards, supply depots, communication hubs, and training facilities. Always with legitimate business reasons. Always with proper authorization. Always appearing completely innocent. They've been mapping us, Velcros whispered. Every strategic asset, every weakness, every supply line. They've spent half a century conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. And we never noticed because we didn't think they were capable of such long-term planning. Corvin finished. We saw a young species eager to trade and explore. We never imagined they were preparing for war. The Council's Demand a Priority transmission arrived from the Confederation Council headquarters, located in the Kelvin system 300 light-years away. The Council consisted of representatives from all 17 member species. And they were not pleased. Supreme Chancellor Dravix appeared in holographic form, his crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns. His species, the Luminator, served as the Confederation's diplomatic corps. They were patient, wise, and utterly convinced of their moral superiority. High Commander Velcros, we have reviewed your reports regarding the human contamination of fleet systems. The Council finds this situation unacceptable. Agreed, Chancellor. However, the situation is more complex than... Complexity is irrelevant. Dravix interrupted, his crystalline voice chiming like broken glass. You have been given a simple task. The humans must submit to Confederation authority. Their infiltration of our systems only proves how dangerous they are. You will proceed with the subjugation as planned. Velcros felt anger rise in his chest. Chancellor, if we attack with compromised systems, we risk losing the entire fleet. Then purge the systems first. We're trying, but the contamination is too deep and too sophisticated. It could take months to be certain we've removed everything. Dravix's form shimmered with displeasure. You have 56 hours remaining in the ultimatum period. The humans will surrender or face destruction. These are the Council's orders. Do not fail us, Commander. The transmission ended, leaving Velcros staring at empty space. Behind him, Thrain shifted uncomfortably. Sir, those orders are suicide, Velcros finished. The Council is so focused on maintaining their authority that they cannot see the trap we're walking into. He pulled up Captain Morrison's final transmission from the meeting on Armstrong Station. The human's face appeared, that cold smile still in place. Commander, you're going to receive orders to attack regardless of the risk. Your politicians will prioritize pride over pragmatism. When that happens, I want you to remember something. We don't want to destroy your fleet. We don't want to humiliate the Confederation. We just want to be left alone to grow and explore on our own terms. The message had seemed like arrogance at the time. Now Velcros understood it was something else entirely. It was a warning from someone who had already won, but was offering a path to avoid total catastrophe. The hidden network, while the Confederation fleet struggled with compromised systems and political pressure. Captain Morrison sat in his command center aboard Armstrong Station, watching the situation unfold through the very monitoring programs that were causing the aliens such distress. Status report, he said calmly. Commander Sarachun. His second-in-command manipulated holographic displays showing the entire Confederation fleet. They've found approximately 40% of our monitoring subroutines. The other 60% remain undetected. Their technical teams are getting frustrated. Some are suggesting complete system reinstalls, which would take weeks and leave them effectively defenseless during the process, Morrison noted. They're trapped between impossible options. What about the Council's response? As predicted, they're ordering Velcros to attack regardless of risk. The Council sees this as a political issue, not a military one. They can't afford to appear weak. Morrison nodded slowly. Everything was proceeding exactly as humanity's long-term strategy had anticipated. 50 years of careful planning, of seeding systems and gathering intelligence, of building a network that spanned half the known galaxy. All of it culminating in this moment. Sir, we're receiving a private communication request from High Commander Velcros. Audio only, heavily encrypted on his end. Put him through. There was a moment of static. Then Velcros's voice came through, sounding tired and defeated. Captain Morrison, we need to talk, privately. I'm listening, Commander. You've won. You know it, I know it, and soon the entire galaxy will know it. But there's a problem. My government won't accept retreat. They're ordering me to attack, even though it will likely result in the destruction of my entire fleet. Morrison leaned forward, his expression serious. Commander, I told you before, we don't want to destroy your fleet. We don't want thousands of deaths on our conscience. We just want to be left alone. Then help me find a way out of this that doesn't end in disaster for both our species. The negotiation over the next 12 hours. Morrison and Velcros engaged in secret negotiations that would reshape galactic politics. They couldn't meet face to face again without raising suspicions. So they communicated through encrypted channels that bypassed both human and Confederation command structures. The Council needs to save face, Velcros explained. If we simply withdraw, they'll be seen as weak. Other species might begin questioning Confederation authority. But if you attack and fail, the result will be even worse, Morrison countered. Your Council is choosing pride over the lives of your crews. I know, which is why I'm talking to you instead of preparing for battle. Morrison thought carefully. The goal had never been to destroy the Confederation, or even to humiliate them. Humanity simply wanted the freedom to grow without being absorbed into someone else's empire. But forcing the Confederation into a corner could create an enemy that would never stop seeking revenge. "What if," Morrison said slowly, "we gave you something the Council wants more than our submission? What could you possibly offer?" "Information, technology, access to resources in regions you've been unable to reach. We've explored areas of space that the Confederation hasn't touched yet. We've made first contact with species you don't even know exist. And we've developed some unique technologies during our isolation that might be valuable to your member worlds." Velcros was quiet for a long moment. "You're suggesting a partnership instead of subjugation." "I'm suggesting that maybe the Confederation needs to evolve. You've spent 1,000 years expanding through conquest and forced integration. What if there's a better way? What if species could join voluntarily, maintaining their independence while contributing to a greater alliance?" The Council would never accept such radical change. The Council is about to lose 300 ships and look foolish in front of the entire galaxy, Morrison said bluntly. "I'm offering them an alternative that turns their defeat into a diplomatic victory. Help me craft a proposal that makes sense to your politicians." The solution 18 hours before the ultimatum expired, Velcros presented an emergency proposal to the Confederation Council. It took every bit of his political capital and the support of several other fleet commanders who understood the military reality they faced. The proposal was revolutionary. Instead of forcing humanity's submission, the Confederation would offer them associate membership. Humans would maintain complete independence and self-governance. They would not be subject to Confederation laws or military authority. In exchange, they would share exploration data from frontier regions, provide access to certain unique technologies they had developed, and agree to respect Confederation territorial boundaries. Most importantly, the proposal would be presented as humanity petitioning to join the Confederation rather than being conquered. It would be framed as the Council's wisdom in recognizing humanity's potential as partners rather than subjects. Supreme Chancellor Dravix initially rejected the idea outright. But as other Council members pointed out the military risks and potential political fallout from a failed attack, opposition began to crumble. The Confederation had spent 1,000 years projecting invincibility. Admitting that they couldn't defeat humanity would shatter that illusion. But presenting humanity's integration as a diplomatic triumph could actually strengthen the Council's reputation for wisdom and flexibility. After 6 hours of heated debate, the Council voted narrowly to accept Velcros' proposal. They would present it to humanity as a generous offer of partnership, carefully worded to make it seem like the Confederation's idea all along. The public announcement when the ultimatum deadline arrived. Both sides were ready. A joint transmission was broadcast across the galaxy, showing High Commander Velcros and Captain Morrison standing side by side aboard Armstrong Station. Velcros spoke first, his 3 eyes grave and dignified. "The Confederation Council has carefully reviewed humanity's petition for associate membership in our alliance. After thorough consideration, we are pleased to announce that humanity will be welcomed as our newest partner species, maintaining full independence while contributing to our shared mission of galactic exploration and cooperation." Morrison followed, his expression respectful, but with a slight smile that those who knew him understood carried deeper meaning. "Humanity is honored to accept this partnership with the Confederation. We look forward to many centuries of cooperation and mutual respect between our peoples." Neither mentioned the ultimatum. Neither spoke of the military standoff or the compromised fleet systems. The official narrative would be that the Confederation had recognized humanity's value and invited them into partnership, and that humans had gratefully accepted. Within hours, The Confederation fleet began withdrawing from Earth's solar system in perfect formation, maintaining the illusion of strength and control. To outside observers, it looked like a diplomatic triumph for the Confederation. Only a handful of people on both sides knew the truth. Humanity had fought and won a war without firing a single shot. The aftermath, 3 weeks later. Velcros returned to Armstrong Station for the formal signing of the partnership agreement. This time, he came with a much smaller delegation and no weapons. Captain Morrison met him in the same conference room where they had faced off before. "I underestimated your species," Velcros said quietly as they watched Earth rotate below. "We all did." "Everyone underestimates us," Morrison replied. "We've learned to use that to our advantage. For 50 years, you prepared for this confrontation. Every move carefully planned, every contingency considered. That level of patient strategic thinking is ... remarkable and terrifying." Morrison turned to face the Drolnith commander. "Commander, do you know why we spent so much time and effort infiltrating your systems, rather than just building a bigger fleet? Because you couldn't match our military strength through conventional means. Partly. But mainly because we wanted to avoid exactly the kind of destructive war that would have cost millions of lives on both sides. We're good at warfare, Commander. We've been practicing on each other for 10,000 years. But we've also learned that the best victories are the ones where nobody has to die." Velcros's third eye studied Morrison carefully. "You really don't want to be conquerors, do you? You genuinely just wanted to be left alone to grow." "We've seen what empires do," Morrison said. "We've been empires ourselves in our history. It never ends well. We learned that the hard way. So yes, we just want to grow, explore, and be free to make our own choices. We'll work with the Confederation gladly, but we won't be ruled by it." "Your species is going to change the galaxy," Velcros said. It wasn't quite a compliment, but it wasn't quite a threat either. Just a statement of fact. Morrison smiled that cold smile one last time. "Commander, we already have. You just didn't notice until now." As Velcros left Armstrong Station that day, he looked back at Earth one final time. That small blue world had taught the mighty Confederation a lesson they would never forget. Never underestimate the species that learn to survive. By being smarter than everything that tried to eat them, humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, not with conquest or submission, but with a smile that promised they would never, ever kneel, and the galaxy would never be quite the same again. Asterisk.